So Fulham have beaten Brentford in the playoff final, which means only one thing. Confirmation of all the clubs playing in the Premier League of the 2020-21 season. Having said that, why not do a tier ranking video of all of the stadiums that we're going to be seeing in 2021? And by seeing, I mean probably on the TV, because it'll be a while till we can actually go into the games. But that doesn't stop me doing a tier ranking video. We're going to be doing a tier ranking video of all the stadiums, judging it by character, history, infrastructure, just a general appearance of it as well. And yeah, as you can see, got my tier out here. Iconic ground, decent day out, average, boring, demolished ground. I don't need to explain what these mean. You know it for yourself. And yeah, just a disclaimer as well, as I always have to do. This is my opinion. Don't start coming into my DMs and start calling me this and that because I put your stadium last place, all right? It is my opinion, all right? Everything is subjective in life if you think about it. So, like I said, please don't take any offence, if you're a snowflake that is, if I put your stadium in demolished ground, alright? Like, it's just a harmless video, so it's not that deep. Alright, so this is going alphabetically, and the first stadium we're going to be starting with is, well, funnily enough, our rivals, Arsenal, the Emirates Stadium. Now, you're probably thinking, well, if you're looking at that, you're probably thinking, well, they're our rivals, so I'm going to put it on demolished ground. But no, I'm going to try and be as neutral as possible. So back out you go there. So the thing about the Emirates Stadium is, it was pretty much the most modern stadium of hot prospects when it was opened in, what was it, 2006, I believe it was. However, over a decade that has gone, and you can actually see that the stadium is slightly going out of fashion. You know, you also walk into the turnstiles and it looks pretty gloomy in there as well. You go into the actual ground, it's sort of looking like, I don't know, like a little bit of a salad bowl. It's like, you can tell that it was a very popular idea back then, but as the years go by, it kind of just goes out of expiry, I would say. Having said that as well, you know, the character itself of the stadium I felt like has gone a little bit downhill for me. I'm gonna stick, it's between, you see, for me, it's between average or boring if you're just looking at the stadium itself. You know what, I'm actually gonna be nice on this one. I'm gonna put it on average. It's not exactly a great stadium, but it's not too awful, if you get what I'm saying. But that's just me saying it as a neutral. I hope this ground, as a Tottenham fan, I do hope this ground gets demolished. All right, the second club we're going to be looking at is Aston Villa's ground, Villa Park. I really like this stadium. I'm a fan of the character of it. I'm a fan of the infrastructure of it. It's a proper big and old-fashioned ground. And it's just like, it's one of those grounds that you still want to grasp onto as a football fan because of the modernisation of football and the way, you know, traditions like start slightly going out the window. Whereas, you know, you look at Villa Park, it sort of keeps to that, and in a very good way as well. I like the tier as well behind the goal, where they have these huge banners of their claret and blue lion. I'm a fan of the outside infrastructure as well. It looks like a proper traditional football ground. I haven't been Villa Park yet, but I think it would definitely be a decent day out. I'm gonna put decent day out there. Right, the next stadium is the Amex. Now, I've been to this stadium, a very depressing 3-0 loss. So I sort of got the perspective of what it's actually like there when you see it in real life. The thing about the Amex is right, so it's located in the countryside. You have to go to a station, which is in the countryside, and you got to like walk. You're near a hill when you first see the stadium. Now, when you see it from the hill, you think, oh, that's a decent looking modern stadium. I really like that. But as you get closer and closer to the stadium, it's quite disappointing because it looks good on the outside, but when you actually go into the inside, it's nothing special. I'm gonna put the Amex. You see, I don't think it's a terrible stadium. I just think it's overhyped, as I explained earlier. But for the way it looks, that is. Not that I'm saying the stadium's overhyped by people. I'm saying that the way you look at it, you know, the appearance doesn't give the actual football stadium justice. So I'm going to stick it on average. Right, next is Turf Moor, and you just look at the infrastructure, you look at the location, you look at the wooden seats. Yeah, it is depressing. Do I need to say any more? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the whole infrastructure, like I said. It looks very gloomy. You know, there's a reason why in Betweeners movie, there's this dig about Burnley. It just looks like a depressing stadium. You know, so gloomy, so lack of colour, just lack of spirit in there as well. Yeah, there's only one place this is going. Yeah. Hope I don't have that Burnley vlogger popping a DM at me. Right, next is Chelsea, Stamford Bridge. The area of where it's in exactly is a really nice area. You know, you go there, you know, you're going into a posh part of London. You know, you're passing houses that are mansions on the way to this ground. Sometimes I just feel like when you're in Chelsea, you just don't feel like it's a proper football day. Like the stadium itself, I mean, there's one entrance of it which looks like you're going into a posh bar or even Harrods. And then the rest of the structure looks-ish like a football ground. But then there's like another part of the infrastructure where it's basically attached to like some building. And that's just like another infrastructure which looks like a very modern looking stand for football. So the actual idea and design of Stamford Bridge just looks confusing as a football ground. Yeah, and also it just doesn't look decent at all, if I got to be honest with you. You know, it looks like they try too hard to look like they're a proper football ground. But you look at the outside infrastructure, as I've said, and it just looks confusing. It looks boring, if anything. And you know what? That's exactly where I'm going to put Stamford Bridge. I'm going to put it on boring. Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park. Now, Crystal Palace is commended for a lot of things, like the atmosphere of their fans, for example, you know, being like one of the best football fans in the Premier League. However, we're not looking at that. We're looking at the football stadium itself. Now, if I have to look at the football stadium itself, I'd say it's pretty poor. I've been there for an away game, and you can't even see the bloody pitch. You know, you got a whole load of poles in front of you. The floor even feels wooden when you're there. I don't think it is, but it feels like that way. It feels like it's rotting. You know, it feels like the away ground you're allocated in is rotting around you. Yeah, you see, for me, it's either boring or demolished ground. But I'll tell you what, you know, I've got nothing against Crystal Palace, but I just do not like their ground at all. I'm putting it on demolished ground. Right, next is Goodison Park. I'm quite a fan of Goodison Park for similar reasons to why I'm a fan of Aston Villa's ground. You know, it's an old-fashioned ground. It's still upholding the values of football that's going to die out eventually. So we've got to cherish these sorts of stadiums because it's got a good element of an old-fashioned ground, and that's what I like. The problem is, as well though, you look at the away end, it's so hit and miss where you're located in the away end because they've got poles there, and if you're like anywhere near to the pole, you're going to have a struggle trying to watch the ground. Having said that though, you know, Goodison Park is a little bit similar to White Hart Lane, just a bigger capacity, like the old White Hart Lane I'm talking about, but with a bigger capacity. And I like in general the infrastructure of it. You know, despite the, you see, it's between now average or decent day out. You know, I had a decent day out when I saw us beat Everton 6-2. There's no way Goodison Park is miles ahead of Stamford Bridge. So I feel like I've got to weigh it out a little bit here and just put it on average. Right, next is Craven Cottage. Craven Cottage, right, where do I begin? Firstly, located in a nice part of London, you know, and congratulations, by the way, Fulham getting promoted, even though I wanted Brentford to win that one. You look at Craven Cottage, it's a bit of a weird stadium. You know, it's located right by the River Thames, you know. So the location-wise, you know, it's proper London vibes. But then you look at the actual stadium. I mean, it's got a cottage of its own stand. It's got a neutral stand. They've got clappers everywhere around the stadium. It's a very unusual stadium, to say the least. And I'm not too much of a fan of it at all. It just raises a few eyebrows. I'm gonna stick you on boring. So after about 20 or so years of not being in the Premier League, I believe it was. I could be wrong, maybe just under 20 years. But either way, welcome back, Leeds United in the Premier League. And we're gonna be looking at Elland Road. I like Elland Road a lot. Decent character of the ground, decent structure. I like some of the stands that they've got there. I'm a huge fan of it, especially the outside area of Elland Road. Proper football ground. I'm definitely going to stick it on decent day out. I feel like Leeds definitely deserves that. Right, next is the King Power Stadium, Leicester City's ground. I've been there before. We lost. Shock. There's so many away games I've been to that we've lost. But yeah, we'll look at the stadium. So it's got a single tier, all in blue seats. You know, you look at the outside of it, it does look like a standard structure of a football ground. I'll say that, you know, it's got a nice symmetrical line as a square. You know, decent view to the pitch as well. you know, as it's a single tier ground. I'd say it just looks pretty boring as a football ground, and you know what? We'll get to that bit later, because there's something I do want to say on that, but we'll get to that later. But for now, I'm going to stick Leicester City on boring, but I'm going to explain why I've put it on boring when comparing it to another ground. Right, next is Anfield Stadium, Liverpool's ground. Their stadium is absolutely banging, especially the extension to what they've had in the stadium. You know, you look at also the Kop end as well. Everything about that stadium is just historically incredible as a football stadium, that is. This photo as well just looks amazing in the headlights, in the nights. Like, I think there's only one place you can really put Anfield, and that's an iconic ground, really. Right, next is the Etihad Stadium. Now, look at the outside of the stadium. It looks like a proper football stadium, I'll say that. You look in the actual inside of the stadium, yeah, it looks all right. I mean, I don't think it's particularly amazing. They have decorated it nicely to a sky blue stadium. I don't think it deserves to have the status of an iconic ground. I feel like it's between average and decent day out. See, that's the thing as well. It just looks a bit similar to the Emirates Stadium as well. I think for that reason, I'm just going to stick it on average. Right, next is Newcastle Stadium, St James's Park. Now, I'm just going to get straight to the point. A lot of people rate the ground. I don't particularly rate the ground, to be honest. Just look at this, yeah? You've got basically about 60% around the ground. Looks like the modern designs of a stadium. But then around it, it's a small little old-fashioned ground. And I'm like, it's literally like comparing, it's literally like you grab Griffin Park, and then, I don't know, you grab Wembley Stadium, you cut out a chunk of Wembley Stadium, and then you put Griffin Park in the corner there, and it fits nicely. That's what it looks like to me, and I feel like that just looks ludicrous for a ground. Not to mention as well, you've got to walk up flights and flights of stairs to get to the away end, because you're located all the way at the top, where you're just pretty much going to be getting altitude sickness. I feel like there's only one place really where I can put this, and that's demolished ground. Next ground that we're looking at is Old Trafford, Man United. Now, Old Trafford, I would say, is up there as well with Liverpool. It definitely is. It's an old-fashioned ground. The status of it is it's the biggest football stadium in the country in terms of a football club. It is the biggest stadium in the country. The size of it, you know, as well, and the fact that it's old-fashioned but still, you know, seen as like the modern icon of football. I feel like it deserves to be regarded as an iconic ground, not just for the history of the club of Man United, but just the fact that this ground is the one that so many people talk about, you know, rival-wise, away fans. Yeah, Old Trafford for me definitely goes on iconic ground. Right, next is Bramble Lane, Sheffield United. I love the stadium. Like, really, I actually highly rate this stadium. That is the best epitome of an old-fashioned football ground that still holds its values as a football stadium. I genuinely highly rate that. Yes, there is a few poles there, but you know, you look at the design of the stadium, you look at the history of it, you look at the character of it. It just, for me, it ticks all the boxes of a classic old-fashioned football ground still in use for 2020. For me, it's definitely going on decent day out. Right, now this is the part that I wanted to get to, which I said I'll get back to later. St Mary's Stadium, Southampton's ground. So we're looking at this right now, and I'm also going to stick it on boring. Now notice that when I stick it on boring, it's next to the King Power Stadium, and look how similar it looks. And that's exactly what I was talking about. The two stadiums are just like a copy of itself, like the classic, can I copy your homework? Yeah, but don't make it look obvious. To describe basically St Mary's Stadium, it's a red King Power Stadium. And if I was to describe the King Power Stadium, it's a blue St Mary's. The two stadiums are just boring, single tier stadiums, and just nothing else to offer other than that. Just one single tier stadium that goes around. You know, no creativity for the designs of both of these stadiums, nothing of the sort. It's just way too bog standard for me. Right, next is my second home, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now, we're looking at the stadium alone, and I've got to say this stadium is absolutely banging. It is the best ever modern stadium presently. Presently the best ever modern stadium. You know, it's got a 60,000 60,000 plus seat capacity. The South Stand tier is bigger than Bournemouth's ground. The roof designing of it, the lighting before kickoff, the golden cockcrow on the roof of it, the outside structure of it, it ticks every single box to be the next iconic ground of football. And that's where it's going. You know, the modern designs of the stadium is just simply stunning and superb. There is no stadium that is better than this stadium at the moment. However, though, it's a shame that I can't say the same about our football. Newly promoted West Bromwich Albion, who are now in the Premier League. And we're looking at their stadium, the Hawthorns. Now, here's a fun fact. The Hawthorns is located on the highest altitude of any football stadium in the country. You look at the actual stadium itself, okay, so it does tick some boxes of a football ground. You know, like I'll look at that and I'll say, yes, that's a football ground, that's a football ground, that. What I will say is it doesn't look like particularly the best stadium. It's between average and decent day out. And I'll put them on decent day out. Right, the next stadium is West Ham Stadium. Olympic Ground, Queen Elizabeth Ground, London Stadium, whatever you want to call it. It has so many names. And yeah, I mean, where do I begin? Been there for an away game, saw us win against West Ham in the Cup, and I had the worst ever view. It's been forced to be a football stadium when it's an Olympic running track. You know, where Usain Bolt won his medals there. Like, the distance between the actual pitch and the first seat nearest to the front row, you need a telescope. You need a telescope. You need anything to increase your vision to be able to see what's going on in the ground. It looks like an absolute dull bowl as well. It is horrible looking ground. It shouldn't even be a football stadium. As I've said, it's a horrible looking ground. Worst ever view for a football match. And there's only one place where it's gonna go. Just has to go there, really. You can't really argue with that. Right, the last stadium on the list. Wolves' ground, the Molineux. I love it. Personally, absolutely love their ground. It ticks all the boxes that you need for a football stadium. I love the structure of it on the outside, you know, the way that they've put it all in orange to represent their club colours as well. You know, because you don't really get any other orange stadiums, or, well, you don't see that many orange stadiums, rather. And I like the character of it. I like how they've got their main stand behind the goal as well, the way that's structured. Yes, there's some gaps in between them, but I like the symmetry of it as a ground from the outside if you're looking at it from above. You know, as I've said before, their huge tier stand behind the goal looks absolutely stunning. I'm actually struggling where to put this here because it's either going to be iconic ground or decent day out. I don't think it quite ticks the boxes for an iconic ground, so I'm putting it on decent day out, but if I had to decide which one of these stadiums is the best and decent day out, it's got to be Wolves. Right, so this is my final ranking of the stadiums. So here it is, as you can see in front of you. Let me know in the comments below if there was anything you would have changed, anything you disagree with, anything you would have liked me to have added about a stadium. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And as I've said before, don't get offended. This is my opinion. But yeah, these are going to be the stadiums that our teams are going to be playing in the Premier League. And I'm looking forward to it. Even though we probably won't be able to watch any games for the first half of the season. Maybe even the whole season, who knows. But as I said, if you like the video, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.